Hello, I'm Chris. Welcome to my reading corner. This is a tag video. This is the Time and a Place book tag, which was created by Carl at Please Read Your Book, and I was tagged by Bob at Bob Can Read. So, there's 5 questions, so I'm just going to go through them. So, the first one is a book that reminds you of your past. For this I've got 2, but I'm going to show you the first one that came to mind, and that is The Twits by Roald Dahl. Now this book reminds me of when I was a kid. I used to sit in bed of a night and finish this book in a night, and I just remember doing that very often as a child, and that reminds me of being a kid. It's only about 94 pages, but I used to just read this in a night. So I used to really sit, get in bed and read this. I just think it was brilliant. And then, second of all, I'd say would be these, The Lord of the Rings. Now the reason I picked these is because when I was getting into reading again from being younger, the films were coming out when I'd probably say about 13, 14 kind of age, so dating myself now, but they came out around then, so I kind of think about them as kind of that kind of formative years. The films were coming out, I had the books, I was reading the books, so yeah. Second question is a book that is set in a place you want to visit but have not. Again, as you know from previous videos, if you've watched previous videos, that is New Orleans, and this is The Axeman's Jazz, which was set in New Orleans, which was a really good crime book. I think there's 4 in the series that he's done. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. Ray Celestin. I'm not sure. I'm mispronouncing that. I'm not very good with pronunciations. But it is a really good book and a place I wanted to visit. It says, New Orleans, 1919. As a dark serial killer, the Axeman stalks the city. 3 individuals set out to unmask him. Detective Lieutenant Michael Talbot, heading up the official investigation, is struggling to find leads and harbouring his own grave secret. Former detective Luca D'Andrea finds himself working for the mafia, whose need to solve the mystery of the Axeman is every bit as urgent as that of the authorities. And Ida, a secretary at the Pinkerton Detective Agency, stumbles across a clue which lures her and her musician friend Louis Armstrong to the case and into terrible danger. As Michael, Luca and Ida each draw closer to discovering the killer's identity, the Axeman himself will issue a challenge to the people of New Orleans: play jazz or risk becoming the next victim. There's quite a few reasons I want to go to New Orleans. One is the culture, the people, the music, the history. It's just somewhere I've wanted to visit for a long, long time. So that's why I would want to go to there. And that's the reason I picked that book up, was because it was it was set in New Orleans rather than based in New Orleans. A book is set in a foreign country that you admire. So for this, I didn't have the other book I wanted to show, so I've just picked this one, which is Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I find this is a really I'm trying to think of the right word to say, quite sad, quite upsetting read, really. but it's one of my favourite books. It's set in Japan, in Tokyo, which is in Japan, and it's just a really harrowing book, really, and it hits you, I think. It hits me anyway when I read it, and the more I read it, the more it hits me. So, but Japan is a place I want to visit, definitely. That's definitely on my list. And it was the first one that came to mind, was Japan, for that. A book that is set in a foreign country. A book that is set in the city, Providence district you live in. Well, for this, I picked two. I picked The Gangs of Manchester by Andrew Davis, which I read years ago, which is about like scuttlers, which is basically Manchester's version of the Peaky Blinders. It was a non-fiction book, and it was based on true events, which was quite interesting. And the other one is probably closer to me actually than Manchester. I think I'm not sure about the mild difference between the two. I picked The Road to Wigan Pier by George Orwell. Now, Wigan Pier isn't far away from me. I'm in Bolton, so it's just down the road. So I felt like this. I couldn't think of anything from Bolton. So I picked Manchester and picked this by George Orwell. I would love to pick up the rest of the stuff I don't have by George Orwell and do a bit of a video on him. I've got this, American Farm 1984, and Down and Out in Paris and London. So I'd like to get like Burmese Days, and I can't think of the other books now, but it's like about poverty on the road to Wigan Pier, and there's also in the book there's like shillings to pence conversions and things like that, and you realise how people lived back then, like from living in rooms and things like that, but yeah, it was a really interesting book about, especially being from not far from the area as well. But I really enjoy Down Out in Paris and London as well. I found that a really interesting book as well, for that kind of, to see what life was like in George Orwell's time. So that's that. And then the final prompt is a book set in the future that you think is or will be realistic. Now again, I've picked two for this, just because I kind of felt like I'm going to go show this one first actually. This book I picked, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Now, there's a lot of, before I go into the dystopian aspects of this book, there's a lot of 80s references, which obviously I'm probably a bit too young for, but I really enjoyed the book anyway, and I feel like every time I read it I'm like, I need to write down these films and then go and watch them. There are some films I have watched, but there's some that I haven't, and music as well, so I'd like to do that. But I feel like this is kind of, we're almost there really, with the aspect of everyone plugging into the Oasis. Everyone's got mobile phones, games, like PlayStations, Xboxes or whatever. It's all, and VR headsets are becoming more of a thing, and I just imagine this technology going more and more, and then everyone's going to have an online persona, and and then from that online persona you're not going to know who people are. That's going to be who they are. You're not going to know the actual person. It's just who they want to present to the world. And I think this is probably, that aspect of this book is probably truer than, probably more realistic than the other book I picked. But yeah, that's Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Next up, this is one of my favourite books and one I want to read next month, which is already mentioned by Bob, and Bob Can Read. This is The Road. It's just a harrowing tale. It's dystopian. It's about a father and his son travelling across America, and it's all barren because I'm not quite sure why it's barren now. I think it's nuclear, but the world's gone to rack and ruins, and it's just a page turner. You just don't know what's going to happen next. It's just such a good. It's one of my favourite books. I know that a lot of people say Cormac McCarthy isn't a great writer, but this book is just hits so hard, and I'd recommend it if you haven't read it and you like dystopian fiction. This is definitely what I'd recommend. I was going to pick Fahrenheit 451, but I feel like that book is one I keep mentioning lately, and I feel like I'd want to concise what I want to say and write notes on it and properly present a review of that book, as that has been mentioned me to do. But this was my tag anyway, and obviously feel free if you want to do it, or even if you don't make videos and you just want to drop your answers down below. I'll interact with that, and it'd be interesting to see what you think, or if you agree or you think I'm wrong in what I'm saying. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I'd like to hear yours. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It's definitely not wrong. It's your opinion, but let's grow the conversation, and let's debate. Let's not argue, but let's talk about books we like and find new books that we haven't heard of. I think what I'm saying is no less valid than anyone else, and vice versa. But I'm going to tag a few people now, so I'm going to tag Neda at Basically Neda. I'm also going to tag James at the Little Big Library, Kat at Kat's Novel Adventures, Pat at Book Chat with Pat, and Annie at Obscure Book Adventures. But again, if you want to do this and it's something you're interested in, go ahead and do it, or like I say, down below is cool by me as well. But I just wanted to get this out. But I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye.